everybody, it's Calxiyn here. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember to join our Discord server, become patrons over on Patreon, and comment down below with your thoughts on our topic for today. So we're going to be talking about whether the crown is now controlling the king, because I wanted to do a video on sort of like the idea that maybe the king could be redeemed because he turned into a tyrant, because I think that's more interesting, but a couple people sort of brought up the idea that it's probably more likely that the crown is just sort of, like, controlling him. You understand what I mean? And so I wanted to talk about that. A lot of people were sort of citing the fact that the crown is missing half its face isn't the right way to describe that. You know, it has half of his face covered, right? Yeah. So that would imply some form of control. And, like, I'm gonna get nerdy on y'all for a minute, but if y'all have been on this channel for a while, you'll know that I really like Spider Riders.
Oh, and for fuck's sake. You have those books that I bought you that were like chapter books of Spider Riders from like 2002. You never read them.
I'm working on it! Okay.
You're working on them? God damn it. Okay,
right.
Continue.
Anyways, so I wanted to talk about that. So, in Spider Riders, basically what happens is there's this girl, Akune, and I don't remember how exactly, it's been a minute, I don't remember how exactly she gets wrapped up in them, but she is basically fighting on the bad guy side, like, you know, for the Oracle or whatever, because, like, the Oracle tells her to, but then sometimes, like, she's like, no, I won't do this for you, I won't participate in this violence or whatever, right? And so sometimes it's like, well, gotta put the mask on you, and so basically they use a mask to control her. And
so
stuff.
it's kind of like The Mask? You ever see that Jim Carrey movie?
It's...
Puts on the...
I don't know.
No? Like brain control.
Yeah, it is brain control.
Or like, you think it's kind of like, okay, so in Lord of the Rings, you put the rings and it sort of corrupts you. Like, it makes you like a worse person, like selfish and angry and greedy. Do you think it would kind of like, because it's in tune with dark magic, and being by the dark magic, I don't know, makes you a shitty person? Sort of like the Horcruxes in Harry Potter as well.
Yeah, so basically when she has the mask on in Spider Riders, it is basically controlling her. Like, she has no, it's not like that necessarily, it's not necessarily that, like, they have to tell her what to do. She just sort of becomes evil. Like, she like, she has her own free mind, but her mind is saying to obey some people over others. So instead of being peaceful, she becomes violent, basically. That's the gist in there. And so I wonder if the same thing is happening to the king, because basically in Spider Riders what happens is she has a regular mask at first.
I love how it's like you get Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, these are all pillars of fantasy genre.
I know, but I've never seen Lord of the Rings.
Man, fuck these nobody read 'em fucking Harlequin novels. I'm gonna give you the truth. I'm gonna give you the realness. I'm gonna give you the Spider Riders reference.
Okay, listen. So, basically, she has, like, a first mask, but then the Spider Riders figure out how to break that one, and so, the guy's name, his name is Buggies. He basically has to make a more high-tech one that wraps around her face and covers half of her face, so it really does look like the mask, from Nomad of Nowhere, because at first it's just, like, a small thing, but then it turns into, like, a big thing, you know what I mean? And so that's the first thing that I thought of, and so I'm wondering if the mask is controlling him because it is covering part of his face, because that's sort of what happened to Akune, is that, like, she just was sort of wearing a mask at first, but then the mask, like, basically grew tentacles and wrapped around her face. And that's just sort of what happened. And so I'm wondering if the same thing is sort of happening. Because I think it would be more interesting if the king turned into a tyrant instead of, like...
Because before this, he was a very sort of charitable person.
Yeah, because he was healing people and using his magic for good. And so I think it would be more interesting if that stopped, not because he wanted it to, but he became something. I don't like the idea of mind control. You know what I mean? But if we need to have an idea of mind control, I would like it to be like Spider Riders, where it's not necessarily that the crown is controlling every one of his thoughts, but it's made him more... Like, it's basically brought out something that is deep within him, because that's sort of the idea with Akune, is that she can be violent, but she's usually... Like, she chooses to be peaceful, but she can be violent. And so the idea with the king would be is that he chose to use his powers for good, but at the same time he could have used them, like he had it in him to use it for evil, because obviously, like, we all have selfish thoughts. It's whether we act on them that are relevant, right? And so you could say that the king had sort of this selfish thought the entire time, but then over the period of, you know, a certain amount of time, when he found the crown, he realized he wanted to use his powers for good and to sort of heal people and help people, right? But there's always going to be that selfish thought inside you that wants you to use the magic for you,
I mean, it could be said that it was just him the whole time, because the second he realizes that, like, oh, no, like, all my magic juices ran out, it's going to be harder to be a good person.
Exactly, and so I would rather them do that, but I think that they are leaning more in the direction that the crown may also be in control, especially because the crown does seem to be, like, it has some level of sentience, right? Because it is...
It's also interesting that, because with Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, it's like...
And other stuff that's not spider
writers, right? Other, I mean, not
better
nearly,
things,
not
maybe.
nearly as relevant as spider writers. It's like a constant. The second you're in its vicinity, it'll turn you evil. But with this one, it sort of like chooses, like it reveals itself.
Yeah, because I'm guessing at first the crown was sort of dormant and was just waiting to run out of juice before its user had decided that. Obviously, the logical explanation of when something runs out of juice is whether you're going to charge it, right? And if charging it meant killing people, the crown would kind of have to gauge whether or not its user was going to do that or not, and then if it wasn't, maybe move on, something along those lines. But then you kind of have to wonder, why does the crown want to eat people? Like, if the crown is the sentient being here, you could say. Like, why does the crown want to eat people? Because I'm pretty sure we did a video on this, in Little Shop of Horrors, the aliens wanted to take over the planet. So it kind of made sense. You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those things where, like, oh, okay, yeah. If they want to take over the planet and, like, kill off the human race, the best way to do that would be to turn the human race against each other, right? But for Nomad of Nowhere, I can't figure out what the motivation of the crown would necessarily be, to just eat people. And maybe the crown even wants more magic, but then, like, then we get into some weird places, because then it's like, okay, but is the crown a sentient being? Is it sort of like an alien, like a magical alien, you know, so to speak, sort of like in Little Shop? Like, what's going on? You understand what I mean, Hunter? Like, yes. It just, there's more questions than there are answers, right? Like, because if the crown wants magic so it can maybe create malformed people, and then maybe it has some kind of control over them. Because you saw, he chose 4 governors, and those 4 governors then sort of turned into monsters, so maybe if the crown has some level of control there, that's why it's worth doing. You understand what I'm trying to say, Hunter? And so that would sort of make sense. I mean, that's what I can see for now making sense, right? Is that the ability to sort of create monstrous humans, it may all be connected to the crown. So the crown still, like, feels, if that makes sense. Like, it's almost like it's like Bluetooth. Like, the crown is connecting to them via Bluetooth, you know what I mean? Which, I mean, that sounds kind of weird, but, like, that's the best sort of analogy I can think of. And so all of the governors are connected to the crown, and the crown is controlling them. And so where the crown kind of gets its rocks off is by knowing that, there are people that he can control and use those people to kill stuff. Or she. We don't know if the crown's a she or not. You know, I'm not going to discriminate. Why are you laughing? Okay.
Hashtag feminism, hashtag evil beyond the pales can also be women. Hashtag continue.
Alright, yeah, that's sort of all I had to say, Hunter. So, you've been pretty quiet. Do you have anything to say? I would honestly prefer if the king just turned bad by himself. I don't like the idea of a mind control crown, but again, if we have to have a mind control crown, I think that we should have it so the crown is just feeding on his desires that he already has.
Because, like, the reason why it's like that in sort of, at least in Lord of the Rings, to a lesser extent in Harry Potter, is that they're kind of villains of high fantasy where they're evil just to be evil. So if he's evil just because he has an evil hat on, then that's less compelling than him being evil because I mean, he's a deeply selfish sort of individual.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure what they're gonna do, to be honest. And I wanna wait and see, and I wanna know what you guys think, because you guys may be like, nah, Cal, like, I would rather him be controlled by the crown, because then we can free him of the crown and he'll be a good person after, or something like that. Like, I'm sure that there are people that have that argument, and that's also sort of compelling and interesting, too, to think that, like, if he's being controlled by the crown, then the Nomad will be more compelled to sort of save him instead of turning him away, maybe. Like, that could be something that they do. I don't know. There's just so many interesting things that could be done here. I wanna know. Like, I wanna see all of the possibilities, and then sort of see what happens in the show. Because I think that Toph is the sort of person that thinks in black and white. Like, he's either evil or he's not evil, right? But I feel like that if the crown is controlling him, there may be more of a thing on the part of, say, like, Scout and the Nomad to kind of be like, well, he wasn't always evil. Like, the crown's made him evil, so all we have to do is save him from the crown, right? Like, that, you know, would make sense, right? So anyway, guys, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to comment down below with your thoughts, become patrons over on Patreon, and remember to join our Discord server, and we will see you later. Bye, guys!